my beautiful guest today who has changed her office again. She called herself a veteran publicist, but I really call her a connector. I met Cherrie on Facebook, of all places, where we're on our platform right now. And she made herself known. She asked me to speak to her writers group. I've known her to kind of champion book editors, specifically Black female book editors. This is way before I knew she was an actual publicist. So I'm really excited about bringing Cherrie Woods in the Baltimore area onto our conversation. And welcome, Cherrie.
Well, thank you for having me. And just a reminder, the C is soft, so it's Cherrie.
I'm sorry, okay. Cherrie.
Hey, that's fair. It's okay.
So, Miss Cherrie Woods, you would think that I would know how to pronounce her name for the amount of time. Miss Cherrie Woods, thank you for joining the Stylist Suite. I appreciate you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Am I correct? You are in the Baltimore area, right?
Yes. I live in the Baltimore area, or the DMV, as we say out here on the East Coast.
That's a super great area to kind of do publicity. I didn't know. It's very obviously politically driven, politically strong, right?
Yes, very strong.
So, were you born and raised in Baltimore?
No. I've moved around a little bit. I was born in the Caribbean in Trinidad. I grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada, on the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
Largest Black Indigenous population in Canada. Then I moved back to Trinidad for a few years after university. Then I moved back to Canada, to Toronto for 11 years, and then to Detroit to work at the Detroit Institute of Arts and Communications. Lived in Detroit for 8.5 years, and now I've been in the DMV for about 15 years. So I've moved around.
So that kind of global perspective, I'm sure you bring into the work that you do, right? You personally given me some insights about how to market to an international market, but what does that background, what do you think that mostly brings into the work that you do when you're promoting, when you're doing public relations, that global perspective?
Yeah, I think particularly with the internet and, we live in a more global world now, we can access global markets. I think it just gives me that perspective of having lived in different countries and different cities. I think that I have a more objective stance and outlook on what works and what doesn't without some of the parameters that could affect others. So I've had so many different experiences that I think when I speak, I can speak from very different voices. And, I can, it is interesting because I see things objectively, maybe more so than someone who hasn't lived in as many places. And I can cut through a lot of the biases that some people may have who've only lived in one place. So I think I have a very unbiased, broad way of looking at anything to do with PR, marketing, journalism.
How did you even get into that industry? I mean,
it's purely by chance, because I think prior to being in PR, I was very much an introvert. I was actually living in Toronto.
No way.
I know everyone says, no way. I was living in Toronto. I was a case manager with Toronto Social Services. And back then, and I'm not going to put exact years because I don't want to share up my age as of right now.
Oh my God.
But they were going from a manual system to an automated system. And back in those days, that was like, oh God, a lot of people were fearful. I'm not going to be able to work with computers. That tells you how long ago it was. And I was on this project team to manage this whole process and automate things. And we were in this huge meeting, and I mean huge, because there were like 12, 15 area offices in the Toronto Social Services. And we're sitting in this room with all of the project people, about at least 200. And I whispered to my colleague, my coworker, I really hope they don't send out another memo that the caseworkers won't read. Like, I whispered it. And for some reason, the head of all of Toronto Social Services saw me whisper. I'm trying to figure out, how did she see me whisper in this huge room? And she pointed to me and said, you. I was kind of like a deer in the headlights. Me? Yes. What did you just whisper? And back then I I don't know, I kind of zoned out. I got terrified and I just said the truth. I just told my colleague that I hope you guys don't send out a memo saying this information that would probably, caseworkers probably won't read. And she goes, good, because you are now going to help us get that information out to all the area offices. You're going to work with a senior manager and you're going to tell us how to get it out.
That's how you got into public relations. That's how you got into publicity.
Yeah, I really didn't know what it was, but then I was doing a road show and really trying to get workers buy-ins to 12 area offices. I was writing a newsletter. It was just, I fell into it.
So publicity obviously then is very different than what publicity looks like now. Just like the word journalism, how would you define what a publicist is, what their job is? If you were to define it, how would you define it?
It's really interesting because the whole field of PR is, it's similar to being a lawyer. And when I tell people that, they're always like, what? It's a real profession, and it has 12 disciplines. And one of the disciplines is publicity. So publicity is just one arm of public relations. And I would say, and that's usually the ones that people are more familiar with. But it can also be crisis communications. It can be events. There's so many different arms, and social media is an arm. But publicity is essentially, people usually think of it as dealing with the media, journalists. But it's essentially connecting you to...
I hate that word. Yeah. Dealing with. Ugh. Yeah, that's how everyone says dealing with. Yeah.
We all have our words.
Beyonce you're dealing with, right?
Like for me, it's selling.
Yeah, it's engaging with, engaging with it, right?
Engaging with, and it's essentially connecting you to your target market. So knowing it, and there's so much writing and analysis involved in it, but people, most people think publicity is Hollywood, and there's the publicist speaking for the actor or the singer, and that's it. But that's just the front facing. There's so much research and analysis and relationship building that goes in to the publicity area that, it doesn't just happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what I do as a journalist is also educate people on, right. What the process looks like, or what I have to do. Do you find yourself also educating? Has so much of what you do,
and that is a challenge. It really is a challenge, particularly because I tend to work with individuals, whether they be creative entrepreneurs, whether they just be solopreneurs. There's a real big learning curve on what public relations and publicity is. People have no idea. They just want to be on TV. They want to be on Oprah. Oprah ended in 2011. That's always my thing. They want to be on TV. That's always the big goal. I want to be on Good Morning America.
And then once you get on TV, then what you going to do, right?
Like, you don't just get to be on Good Morning America. It's not that easy. It has to be a reason. It has to resonate. What have you done? What is happening in the world that makes it relevant? There are so many things. What relationship do I have with Good Morning America? Timing is key. Are you ready? Are you interview ready? Do you have a one-pager document that I can send to them? They're going to ask me a lot of questions. Is she going to freeze on TV? Can she speak well? There's so much. And then when you go on TV, please, I have to tell you what to wear. Don't wear stripes. Don't wear patterns. Double your makeup. That camera is not kind. If you're darker skinned, there's a sheen that I don't know if it's gotten better, but I've had male and female clients like powder. That camera can be really
ashy,
ashy, or leave you out.
Oh, God, the men, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you don't just arrive, overnight. And so I think I'm really challenged, which is why I also do workshops to help people understand what public relations and publicity is, not just what they think it is. So.
No, that leads me to another question about, because you put the word veteran in your bio, that you're a veteran journalist.
Yeah.
How have you been able to sustain, and the fact that you said you really only work with individuals, how have you been able to sustain yourself?
I think like yourself, I have worked full time during these years, so it's not always been solely this income, but I think a lot of it is, one, COVID was not good for most of us, but it was good for some of us.
Yes.
And so COVID just took the whole mystery of being able to work with someone you've never met and do everything virtually to another level. And that was core to my business. So now I have clients all over the country. I have clients I've never met. And then add in Zoom. So now there is the personal, because I can meet you virtually, even if I never meet you in person. So Zoom added a whole other dimension. And so now my whole market can be anywhere in the world. People get that. And that has, even during COVID, doing workshops for libraries virtually and conferences virtually. I've done virtual workshops for conferences.
Mom, I'm on a call. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And then as well, that's how I'd heard about you, certainly from living in Detroit and still having connects. And I reached out to you on Facebook, and you were able to do a virtual workshop for my Writers Association in the DMV. So,
did your not really ability, because before the pandemic, we utilized social media to kind of, stay connected to folks. But you've taken social media to really generate leads and, how do you utilize specifically Facebook? Because that's where we are now.
Oh, and I'm a Facebook. I tell my friends, you can say whatever you want. Facebook is my go-to. I've met journalists on Facebook. I've pitched stories on Facebook. I've gotten clients through Facebook. I reach out to conferences on their business pages. I can't imagine my life without Facebook.
So what groups are you in?
I don't know that I can name all of them, but I've just started to pare it down. At one point, I was in about 50 private Facebook groups. Whether it's journalists, PR people, nonprofit professionals, because nonprofit communications professionals, because I've mostly worked in nonprofit, Black PR professionals, mainstream PR professionals, author pages, international author pages, poets. I'm a poet. It was probably more than 50, and then I started to okay, children's authors. You name it. Where to submit poetry, free submissions, visual artists. It's like I said, the front-facing part of Facebook is great, but the back-facing part of Facebook is invaluable.
So you were able to have several sources of income from Facebook.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have people reaching out. Oh, I saw you post about your upcoming workshop. I just got a message on Facebook asking me if I can do a promote your own book workshop, which is my signature workshop in Frederick, Maryland, because I'm on a page for, I guess, writers, and they saw something I did and they're booking me for January. I'm like, that's a little far ahead.
No, but that's amazing though.
So Facebook has gotten me a lot, and that's why now I did not have a separate Facebook page for my PR, but now I do, and it's Cherrie Woods eclectic PR, where I just give advice and share information and talk about my clients and things like that.
No,
so, I love Facebook.
It's funny like how many times you and I have interacted, and the fact that we met originally on Facebook.
Right. You're right.
That's always really amazing, because you're one of those people, at least for me, that your personality kind of explodes offline. I mean, you're online to me a little subdued,
right?
But once you get offline, your personality is very infectious. Can you give any tips or insight? You mentioned that you were an introvert. A lot of the writers that I know stay at home behind their computer, and they're really stifled. They're stuck. They're trying to get out. They're trying to connect, make these authentic connections. Any tips or insight?
I always tell my clients and other artists, and this goes for artists across the board, because I've worked with visual artists as well, actors, whoever, join writing associations, join visual artists associations, because the times that we are in now, you don't even get to be really introverted. And I always say it's kind of unfair. Like if writing is your medium, now you have to be able to do readings and you have to be able to talk about your book and you're going out and you're vending. Those days are now over. And so I end up actually training a lot of my clients on how to, like, what do you say when I go out? How to set up your table. Make sure you have your 2-minute pitch. If nothing else, you can't talk about your book, your art, your poetry, your theater piece. You've lost it. And so that's all really, and then learn how to, if you're a natural introvert like I was, learn topics. So be an expert at everything to do with your book topic. Be an expert about your art. It's abstract art. Did you know that abstract art is this? And I have the 6 points and people want it and then let people respond. So be that person that it's almost like having the 4-5 things that are trigger points and then sit back. I just had a client, she wrote a book about starting locks and how she got comfortable around 15, 16 wearing locks and how her family was really resistant. You know, locks in the Black community can be seen as positive or not, and how she was just always comfortable, and how now she has the book out. How can we sell it? Become an expert on locks. Become an expert on what's the Crown Act. People don't know that at one point, and still in some states, it's illegal for Black women to wear natural hair. Become that expert in your state. What's your state doing? That broadens your opportunity as an author, not just to talk about your book, but to talk about your topic. You're an expert. You might be asked to sit on panels. I mean, there's so much more to just having a book now that you can do with that book. Even if it's fiction, you can be, how do you write a fiction book? What was my journey? As you said, Darralynn, people love stories. They want to hear the background now. They don't just
we're in the day and age. Yeah, you don't have to be a celebrity. And look how fast that trend. You don't have to be a celebrity to demand an audience. Like look how. So I always really, really teach being authentic, right? You are one of the most authentic people that I know. How you mentioned it in your last answer that you are specific to author. You have a soft spot for book authors. Talk a little bit about your niche, how you develop that niche, and what makes authors love you so much. Why do they love you so much?
I think because I am an author as well. I'm a poet and I write essays and I self-published my first book. So I've had the whole experience. I'm now pitching to publishers, but I think what makes me interesting, and which is me, and I suspect you're the same, is if I'm going to do something, I'm going to learn every single thing about it. So prior to really authors becoming my niche, I worked with visual artists. I worked at art museums. I worked at the Detroit Institute of Arts. I worked at the Lewis Museum. So I knew everything about art, everything about museums, the backstory. And that's where the analysis comes in. And I am naturally really analytical and I'm a dissector. I didn't really realize it, but everything I do, I break it into points.
You break it down, yeah.
I got to know about authors. I joined a writing group. I didn't know anything about self-publishing. I joined a writing group. I listened, said, okay, I'm going to try it. Then I learned all about the publishing world because knowledge is power. I also, as a BIPOC, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, I'm very aware of these organizations, the publishing world, the recording world, the artist world. They weren't designed to accommodate us. And so we're always sort of trying to get in. But even if you go that path, there's no need anymore for ignorance and not knowing it. You need to understand these businesses, how they work. You need to educate yourself, whether you chose to be independent or to be involved. We can look at the history of our people in all these industries and how we weren't getting good contracts. Things weren't copyrighted. There's no reason for us to not have that knowledge anymore. We just really didn't know. And now we can know. So I'll let my manager handle it. No, you know what you're doing as well as your manager. So sometimes you can direct your manager so that they're your manager. You're not, you know what I mean?
They're working for you.
Say, hey,
you know, working for them, right?
I'm not really liking that direction. Let's talk about it. not just sort of sit blindly. And that's for every artist, regardless of their color. You need to know, and there's so much information now.
But that all of that information can be overwhelming. That's why
you're right.
When I started the Stylist Suite, there was so much out there. Right. I try to put it in bits and pieces so that people can digest it. What are, obviously you have a great amount of expertise in a lot of different industries, especially since you've been an artist, you've been an author, and now you're kind of on the other side helping other.
Right.
Why did you decide to go the route of helping other people versus pushing your own? Or really, the question is, this is the real question. How have you been able to transition that into a monetized business?
You know what? Credibility. You know what? I guess people see the joy, and maybe that's what's brought out that more extrovert side. I'm happy in this space, and it's authentically joy. And I think when I'm joyful about something, I'm so enthusiastic that it just happens. I've learned that if someone has a conversation with me, they want to hire me. Every time I do a workshop, I get clients because I share gems in a way that's palatable, just like you. I'm listening to you. I'm like, I need to write some articles about the things that I know, but only because I'm listening to Darralynn. I'm like, oh, it's actually doable or possible. Because I'm like, those publications you can just pitch. I've never really thought about that. You make it palatable.
They actually want to know about me. Yeah, they really do.
You make it possible, accessible, palatable, and you're doing it. So it's like we cover all of it. You're actually doing it, you're living it, and you're sharing it. I just feel like maybe for some of us,
that's so powerful.
I don't want to keep this to myself. Isn't there a song like that? I don't. I want everybody in this. We need to.
Yes.
Team. On the business side. And, a lot of times we get so caught up, I don't like her. This. And I always tell, I've had clients I don't particularly like. I don't need to. I'm here to help them get to that level
where they need to be.
So it's a personal thing.
It's not an age thing. It's not the fact that you put veteran on the fact on the it's just it brings
veteran is just that I've been doing it for a long time.
And plus it probably brings you way more joy. Like being able to help a writer get an idea into a magazine is way more fulfilling. Than going to the NFL, right? It's just way more fulfilling.
And now I'm getting asked to sit on different boards for writers, and I'm like, people are paying attention. And last week, I'm on the board for City Lit Festival, which is a wonderful one-day festival in Baltimore that brings authors from all over the country. And this poet that I had helped, I worked with her 3 or 4 years ago. I don't tend to self-publish books, but she asked. So I said I did. And there she is. I asked her if she would volunteer. So we're sitting in this workshop, and out of the blue, she is moved. She was the workshop monitor. She's moved by something and shares it and said, Miss Cherrie, which we say on, it's Baltimore, Miss Cherrie helped me so much.
They put
if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have this book. And I'm sitting there like, oh, wow. And then after 5 people come up to me, hey, do you have a card? But totally unplanned, totally unexpected. And it just kind of filled me up. I was like, wow. I was kind of speechless because that was unexpected. And you just don't know how helping this one, she was going through a divorce and this book was really cathartic for her. And, she was like, I don't know. And I was like, I can do this. I don't want to be self-publishing too many people's books, but it's poetry. And I just wanted to do it. And I made sure I did it at an affordable price, right? But you just do.
But you also have to make a living.
Yes.
Yeah, you also have to make a living. But I 100% agree with you about the fulfillment that you get when you're helping others, because this kind of doing it alone, pitching single articles to editors, it's not in my own little room on my own little laptop, that's not fulfilling anymore. I don't think any of us want to do that anymore. So
and I'm out and about, and I'm in everything, arts and culture and business, solopreneurs. I'm really branching out, creating a branding package because a lot of people say, I want to start a business. I have this great idea. I don't know where to start. That's something I can do as well. So it's kind of figuring out how far you want to go because you're still one person, and I have to keep this healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. So it's getting business smart, right? Like we've talked at our consultation. So you've done all this, but now you've got to make sure how to monetize some of it and yet still feel good about it. So that's the line, right? How to, because my
absolutely that is
my brain and my intellectual abilities are really what I'm selling. And there's a price and it's worth it. And I think people need to understand that this came from 20 years. This comes from keeping up with what's going on. This comes from relationships that I maintain. This comes from the respect that people have because they see me produce. This just doesn't come naturally. You work at it.
Absolutely.
So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for this knowledge, the relationships, the time I put in to stay relevant, to give you accurate information. That's something that we have to be on all the time.
But you are way more, you're so certainly accessible.
Oh,
you
yeah.
give so much advice on Facebook. I want to make sure that people know how to reach you. Yeah. You give a lot of information. Obviously, I want people to hire you.
Right.
You want to be hired, yes. But you still, like me, provide a lot of invaluable information. So where can people find you, find out about the work that you do?
So people can find me, Eclectic PR, ECLECTICPR.com is my website. I'm on Facebook as Cherrie Woods _Eclectic PR. I'm on IG as Cherrie Woods, and I'm an email person. I check emails too much, so you can email me at info@eclecticpr.com. And I have a workshop coming up. You can see that on my website, on my Facebook page, and I really encourage everyone, solopreneurs, artists. I can speak to writers are my niche, but I really know the whole gambit. And I really like to start with consultation. I think it really narrows things down. It helps people focus in because the reality is most of us don't have, in the ideal world, you'd hire me for a year. But I understand that at the level that most people are, that's not, even if my rates are good. So let's do on this consultation, narrow down what we can do. I like to start with short contracts so you can see if we work well together, you can see some evidence, and then from there we can go on retainer. But I'll tell you, if you're serious about your craft, your business, do not do it alone. And if you can't afford to hire someone, join groups, go to conferences. I volunteer at conferences